Here. All right. Looks like we are rolling. Hello, everyone. Welcome to January 7th after a crazy day yesterday. Yeah, no, live. What's up? Real deal. Did a video on Monday talking about the Zeiss and figured... Let's see. Yeah, figured we might as well get rolling, do a little real life thing, you know? Yeah, cool. It says it's live. Let me know. Do you guys see this live going crazy? I'm trying to view it on the other iPad as well, just to make sure, but it should be live. Also, should have everything muted, so if you hear any doubling audio or anything like that, let me know. Hopefully isn't an issue like last time. Started streaming, boom, good, all right. Cool. So, yeah, gonna jump on. Good morning from Indonesia, yeah. I am going to kind of roll through some of the comments and questions I had about the Zeiss. And then if you guys have any other questions, actually I should probably grab the Canon A1 underwater camera, because I also did a video on that this week, in case anybody has any questions about that. But I figured I always run into, like, you know, seeing people do videos on things, and then there's a zillion questions in the comments, which are awesome. But sometimes it's just nice to get like a follow-up on here so you don't have to just dig through comments. So for me specifically, you know, when I'm looking at a lens or any piece of gear, I'm like usually looking through every possible question or thing that could be coming up about that thing. So yeah, I'm always digging in as much as I can. So I figured if I had the opportunity, I might as well make another video and talk about this stuff, you know, whatever. So anyway, I will kind of jump into seeing what's going on here, and also just kind of jumping on to see what comments we had on the video, because there were a ton of good questions. So a lot of people specifically asking about the Summilux. And also, if you want to ask any question outside of, you know, just like the Zeiss thing, you definitely can, because we have plenty of other things to talk about as well. But I figured it would just be a good follow-up. So I'll just jump on here, start answering some questions. I'll try to pay attention in the comments. And if you have any questions live, please feel free, and we will keep rolling. All this stuff is ready to go. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything, I tried to grab as much kind of stuff as possible, including this is the TTArtisan 3514 that I've also filmed a video on. So we will have at least 3 different 35mm Leica M-mount lens videos on the channel coming up pretty soon. So yeah, and if you're checking in, just say hi from where you're from and stuff. Keep the comments rolling in the kind of live stream here. And if you are watching and are a fan of this channel in general, leaving a like and stuff would be great. So yeah, boom, Blind Husky. I will start with your question, because that is a lot of the questions I've been getting. So how does the Zeiss compare to the Nocton 35 1.4? So as I kind of explained in my first video, the Nocton was the first. Actually, I realized after I did the video that it was the second lens. I bought the 50 sonar, the 50 1.45 sonar from Zeiss was the first lens I have, and then I borrowed a 35 1.4 from a friend. Yeah, I know, Tay, I have had a lot of offers to let me borrow their FLE to compare. And I want to for science, but I don't want to for my pocketbook. But back to the Nocton. I tried version 1. I tried a version 1 multi-coat. So there's 2 different versions and 2 different versions of the 2 different versions. I found that the distortion was too much for me. The softness, especially in the corners, especially wide open, was just like not great for me. And you could do lens corrections and stuff, but I just felt like I really didn't like that. I feel like from a lot of people's comments that version 2 is a little bit better, and then Blind Husky, you specifically mentioned that you shoot yours on film. I think that film does a great job of kind of hiding a lot of imperfections in like, like micro contrast and that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't have any comparisons. I haven't shot the other Zeiss lenses as well. I do know that I've shot the, I did use the 35 knocked on, or whatever that thing was called, the 35 1.2 version 2 for a while. But that thing just did not have good, it was really swirly and kind of fun, but in general, it just like wasn't a good lens. And it had a ton of chromatic aberration, a ton of vignetting. There's a ton of stuff that I, had to deal with that I didn't like. So anyway, sorry, I'm like checking my phone because I have a 3-month-old that's sleeping in another room, and my other monitor phone just died, and I want to make sure that my wife's getting him if he's gonna wake up or anything. Yeah, and Tay, like you said, that's kind of why I like made my video and talked about it as such, better than a Leica, because from everybody that I've talked to that has both the Leica and the Summilux, the Summilux may have more character. It's a little bit softer, but it also, a lot of people were saying, oh, the FLE, the Leica version doesn't have any chromatic aberration and it's sharp and all this stuff, which like isn't necessarily true. So it's a great lens and I loved using it, and the times where I borrowed it, and the size honestly is the reason to get it. So $2,000 plus on the used market difference for a more convenient carry around lens. That's kind of where I'm at. So a lot of people said that I'll probably end up with the FLE eventually, and that's probably true. I'll probably end up buying it at some point. Maybe if there's a rumor that there's going to be an updated 35 FLE from Leica. So maybe. I found that the bokeh was super weird. It was super swirly, which was cool. It was actually, I don't have the 7Artisan. Oh yeah, I reviewed that one too. Yeah, so the 7Artisan 35 1.4, the Wen or whatever. That lens was really, really cool, and it had a lot of that kind of swirly bokeh. But yeah, the FLE has a bunch of chromatic aberration, as people are kind of saying in here. But for size and stuff, I mean, it's amazing. But so back to it, here is like the reason. Let's see if we can jump into here. Yeah. So, you're seeing on the M6, which is the same size essentially as the M240. This hood doesn't do it any favors. And like a few of you guys said, there is another circular version. I ordered that on Amazon Prime, like get it now kind of thing, and it comes tomorrow. So I ordered it on Monday after some people told me about it. But yeah, it's I think we're just backed up here in the US at least. So the thing is just big. Like I mentioned in the video too, it not only is big, but it like is wide too, and then kind of goes back down again. So this whole main middle section is what also kind of just like adds to the chaos. For those asking, we'll do a little spoiler alert. The 35 1.4 from TTArtisan, in case that's something you're interested in. I'm getting a lot of questions about that lens as well. I would definitely say it's not an alternative to the Zeiss unless you're shooting it only on film, maybe. And in that case, you should probably be careful because then you're going to want to make sure it's calibrated. But size-wise, they're not that far off. And the lens hood here is deceptive because it's so small and shallow. Yes, so the question about the lens filter. So the nice thing about the Haug, or however you say it, is it's made for the lens itself. It's not a filter threaded one. So if you can see on the outside, it has these little bayonet mount kind of things. And so the way that you actually install it is by putting it within the actual built-in outside bayonet mounts, which leaves the main filter stuff open. So that is nice. But the thing about the TTArtisan, for those who have asked, the lens hood is like the tiniest thing, and it kind of masks the size. It makes it seem like the lens is smaller than it really is. So it's almost the same size, and it feels just as heavy, if not heavier. So for what it's worth, if you are somehow buying the TTArtisan to save on size, I don't think you would do that, but yeah, it's not gonna save you there. So that was asked a few times. I figured I'd address that. But yeah, I did buy Haug makes another lens hood that wasn't available when I first bought this, which was about a year ago. And so now it is. So I'll try it out. It should be smaller. My worry is that it might still be taking up a lot of the viewfinder, which this already takes up a ton of the viewfinder. So we shall see. Optically though, and performance-wise, if you've watched the video that I made about this lens in general, it's amazing. Like the sharpness, the separation. I know there's a little bit of comments in here. I can't keep up with everything about chromatic aberration. I will say that the chromatic aberration on a 35mm lens and any wide or angle lens at 1.4 wide open, you're like, I have not seen a lens that doesn't have chromatic aberration. Maybe they make like a 35 Summicron Oppo or something for the SL that doesn't, but my Summicron did. It didn't have as much, but it was also a stop slower. So, and I do feel like in the character department, anytime you have a faster lens in general, it feels like you have more opportunity for character because you have more opportunity for bokeh and stuff. And so I will say that this lens, while more on the clinical side, because it is really sharp and well controlled and feels very, very modern, it does have just more character because it has more feel than the Summicron if you're shooting it both at wide open. So if you're shooting this at 1.4 and you're shooting the Summicron, I had version 1 of the spherical or the aspheric version. I haven't tried the version 2, but they should be pretty similar. I will say you get more pop, you get all that stuff because you have an extra stop of speed here. And when you have really good sharpness, that then means that you get more fall off and all that kind of stuff. So, yes. So Calvin, you mentioned all the lenses that you've shot on 35. I have used the Voigtlander 35 Nocton 1.4 version 1 multi-coat, the Nocton 35 1.2 version 2, which was big and heavy like this, which is one of the reasons why I was kind of scared to get this in the first place. I borrowed the Summilux, which was great and super fun, but I only got to keep it for a couple weeks. It was on loan from Leica. Then I bought the Summicron because I got a crazy good deal on it, and then I really just wanted to have a smaller lens. The large size was throwing me off. And then I realized, and like I said in the video, that I really needed the speed as much as I didn't want to have it. And this lens has really good contrast. So I actually kept this lens and the Summicron, and I was using the Summicron on film and personally, and then using this lens. So honestly, like, for the amount of money, you could definitely keep this. You could buy a Summicron and this lens and still be less money or around the same amount as buying a Summilux. So it's one of the things that I've actually considered doing, because I did have two 35 millimeters for a while and just thought it was overkill. But kind of in retrospect, was not a bad idea, because I do really love this lens on digital for work stuff, but it's just hard. It's been really, really rare. I brought this as my only, not my only lens, but my main lens when my son was born and we went to the hospital, and I had my M240s at the time, and I used it and stuff like that, and it felt okay, but just, it's not, one of the reasons why you buy a Leica in general and on these smaller cameras is because you want to be inspired to pick it up, right? Like, you want to see it on the shelf and be like, yes, I want to grab that. I feel that about this 28. Thank you, Tay, because you're in the comments. I bought it from you. And I still feel it about the 50 a little bit, but the 50 is super heavy because I have the silver version. So for those who have been on this train and seen my 50 video, it's amazing, but it is also really big and heavy because I didn't realize at the time how much more the silver version weighed because of the brass over the black chrome or whatever they call it. So I love the look of it, and I think that's the reason I keep it, but it would be really nice to have a much, much smaller one. But it's still not, it doesn't bulge out and bulk like the other ones do. So, you know, kind of feels like it's pretty good. So for performance standpoint, this lens is amazing. I completely stand by that. I was even looking through film scans. One of my friends, Jesse, was saying that he didn't like how it looked on film because it was like almost too modern and contrasty. So if that's something that you're into, film kind of like does weird things with lenses. And so sometimes if you have a really, really sharp lens on film, it almost feels too digital. Not that it'll feel all the way digital, but sometimes it feels too digital, and that like little bit of softness can be a little bit of a help almost. Boom. Let's see. I'm like way far back in this. Sorry, guys. Yeah, TTArtisan 35 is good bang for the buck. As a spoiler, because my video hasn't gone out on this lens yet. This lens is not as sharp as the 7Artisan version, the Wen or whatever that is. The 7Artisan is sharper in the center, but is much more vintage swirly. This one isn't as sharp in the center, but I feel like it would perform well on film because it kind of hides that kind of stuff. But it renders more modern, so it doesn't get that as swirly as, and the bokeh I find to be more pleasing and less distracting. But I feel like it's also a lot heavier. I could be wrong because I don't have both of them on me right now, but that's my kind of 2 cents on the 7Artisan versus TTArtisan thing. They're both good for the money, but it's just a different thing. And I would definitely actually take either of them over the Voigtlander at this point because neither of them distort and stuff like that nearly as much. But if I was only shooting film and like wasn't shooting f1.4 very often, Let's see. Yeah, Tay, you said the FLE is overkill for film. I will say that the times that I used it on film, I thought it felt good. Like, it is overkill for film, yeah, but like it does feel really good, and has enough character that it feels like it works well and isn't too clinical, is the phrase that people use. Yeah, Jasper, you said maybe I'll just do like an overall gear live stream at some point. I know you asked that question in one of my other videos, but yes, I have a ton of gear, enough that like this table, like, I guess it's not wide enough, but this table wouldn't hold all of the possible gear that I could have as I'm kind of like looking around the room. Because film gear in general isn't as expensive as digital stuff. I'm even looking over here and seeing all the other cameras and things that I have. So anyway, and let's see. Yeah, the Ultron, man, I'm like so far back in the comments. Sorry, everyone. The 35 Cron spherical is the first Leica lens. Man, that would be, if you're gonna go for it, like, go for it. I think that is the perfect walk around combo if you're not gonna get the FLE. I felt like, and I feel the same way about the 28, but I feel like not as many people only want to shoot 28. If you're gonna buy a Leica and only have one lens, and you have the money to spend, but you want portability and you don't care about 1.4, that's a lot of ifs. But the 35 Summicron, I had version 1 of the aspheric version. I always felt like that just felt the best. That felt like what shooting a Leica should be like. It was small, well-performing, looked great on film, looked good on digital, all those things. So, anyway, for what it's worth. Not getting, yeah. Simon, I really want to check out that 28 as well. But yeah, same thing. The 28 Lux is supposed to be even bigger than this lens. So, oh, sound gone? Is the sound good? Okay. Man, that was a while ago anyway, probably. So yeah, question, I think I made it to the end of the comments, and I definitely skipped a bit of this, but yeah, I've never tried the Voigtlander 35 1.7 Ultron. I don't know if their naming system for Voigtlander is the same as like Zeiss, where it's a lens design or it's just an f-stop kind of thing like it is with Leica. I just filmed a 28mm Ultron versus 28mm Summicron video that should be coming out soon-ish. And then I have a Voigtlander 28 Ultron video. I never tried the 35, but I obviously sold the 28 for the Summicron, which was a lot of money. But it's a great lens, and I'm really feeling like it's going to be good. I never had any... Do you ever have a Voigtlander lens with back focusing issues? The only lenses that I've ever had back focusing issues were the lenses like the TTArtisan and the 7Artisan and stuff like that. And those are ones that they're known to back focus because they just, I don't know why too. So I've both bought and been sent like 5, I think, different TTArtisan or 7Artisan lenses. And I've had people say that they just slapped on their camera and they're fine. Like, they're not fine for me, and every single one has been back focused. So I don't know if that's just an interesting reason. So yeah, so all of them have back focused, but they're meant to be calibrated. The 50 1.5 sonar would back focus wide open at not 1.5. So that lens was not great in that realm. I only shot it at like 1.5 or 5.6 plus because mine was calibrated 1.5, which was great. And then I have a 90mm, let's see, a 90mm Summicron from, I think, the 80s. That is kind of my telephoto lens. This lens back focuses as well, but I think it's just because it's old and needs to get calibrated. I messaged Leica, and I'll probably send it in to get calibrated. I find that f2 is fast enough for most of the stuff that I do now that I have the M10s on, you know, for speeches and stuff like that. But I do have the 75 1.25. I'm not sure if 75 is long enough in comparison to 50, so not sure if that's going to keep rolling. But those are the lenses that have back focused on me. I haven't had any issues with Voigtlander or Zeiss or Leica other than a vintage lens back focusing. Everything has been calibrated completely well enough to shoot wide open at all apertures consistently. And I've realized that I need to make a video specifically about just shooting rangefinders wide open, because it seems like everyone has an issue with that, and most people shoot a Visiflex or an EVF with an M, and that's like it. I don't know why. It might just buy an SL2S or buy an SL2 if you're gonna do that. Like, it doesn't. That part doesn't make sense to me. I never found the Visiflex on either to be very good too. Like, I didn't like the experience of it. The only thing I liked was that they fold up, and so you can look straight down, so you can get that waist level kind of thing. How much does Leica calibrate a lens for users? Yeah, so they quoted me, they're not sure. It was going to be like $300 or $400 to calibrate it, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take. So that is also like a concern of mine, is how long it's going to take. I have a wedding, small like elopement thing in a couple of weeks, so I'll probably wait till after that, and then probably send it in and see what happens. Yeah, the whole SL series has great EVFs. So, let's see here. Konica Hexanon. I haven't had any plans to check those out. They've never really been interesting to me. I don't like 40 millimeters. 28 f2. I would rather buy the Zeiss. And then I have a friend that had a really hazy copy. And then the 90, like 2.8 is too slow for me on 90, because you have to have a higher shutter speed anyway. So f2 is already kind of slow. Let's see. Yeah, and I don't use live view on. Yeah, I don't. I sold the Visiflex before I bought the M10s. Leica had sent me a TL. Yeah, TL a few years ago, as like a gift, I guess. And it came with the same Visiflex that the M10s use, and so I kept it in hoping that eventually I'd buy an M10, and I bought an M10 a lot longer, and then I actually needed just more money to buy the M10, so I sold the Visiflex before I even bought an M10, so it was kind of a mess. But I never actually used it on the M10. I used it on the TL, and was just like, yeah, it's fine. Just didn't feel like it was worth it. Scott, you make a really interesting point or question. If you use the exact same shutter, ISO, aperture settings on an M10 in a different body like the EOS R, do you find the Leica lets in the same amount of light? So that is something that I want to do kind of more testing on. One thing that people will kind of know, I guess, or some people don't know, that like f-stop is, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, f-stop is more of a calculation of distance and stuff like that. And t-stops are the actual amount of light coming in, if that's correct. You guys can let me know. So I do know that different lenses, just like how not every 35 millimeter lens is exactly 35 millimeters in terms of field of view. Some of them are a little bit different. And then same thing with apertures. Sometimes apertures don't line up in terms of actual light and t-stops. So I would have to do the same test on the EOS R and, you know, like one of these Leicas with the same lens as well, just to make sure that thing's accurate. But I have found that people have used like their digital camera as a light meter and had a little bit of issues. I can't imagine they're like stops off, but yeah, I do think that that can be a little bit of an issue at times. Yeah. Oh man, there's so many stinking comments. Sorry, guys. Yes, mechanical aperture. Cool. Let's see. Yeah, so Carson, this is like a little bit off topic from the 35 millimeter discussion, but you talked about wanting to buy your first camera. I would say, like, if you really want the X100V, buy the X100F or S or T or something first. I'm definitely going to do a video later this month at some point on the difference between the X100F and the X100V. The X100F you can buy for like $700 to $800-ish, sometimes even lower than that, from what I've seen. But then the X100V is like $1,100 to $1,400 as new. And so it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars of difference. And so if you don't have either and you don't have experience with them, like, buy the X100F and see if it does all the things you want it to do. Same thing, that's like my advice with the 28 video that I'm going to put out soon. You know, like, if it works for you, like, if you buy the Voigtlander and it works, then cool, like, use it. That's kind of my philosophy on most things. Like, use the thing that most people think is working, and if it doesn't work for you, then buy the better thing. If price is really a big issue for you. For me, price is usually an issue. So I can't usually just go out and buy the best thing out there. Like, the M10R has better dynamic range and better high ISO performance, but I can't afford to just buy 2 new M10Rs. Like, it's just not a thing. So I'm using the M10s to the capabilities that I can use. I only just bought them. So, let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that the Zeiss 35 2.8 is one of the sharpest lenses out there. I hear it's great, and it's small, like super small. So if you're going to use 2.8, then rock and roll. Yeah, let's see. Ooh, f-stop doesn't count for coding, and yeah, that makes sense. I know we're back behind things a little bit. Yeah, so let me know if you guys think this is a good idea. I have like some sort of projections. I've been considering making a what I want from like what I want Leica to make in 2021. So like, I don't know what that would be called, like a prediction video or a wants video, because I have things that I do want them to make and I think would be great, and sort of some predictions, I guess. So let me know if that's something you guys are interested in. A lot of people have been talking about like an EVF M, however you want to call that, which could be cool, for sure. So anyway, let's see. Always thought the Zeiss was too sharp and too contrasty. See, I feel like I understand that, that feeling. For me, as like a wedding photographer, so the reason I need, and I talk about it in my 28 video coming up, the reason that I need sharp lenses, and I need them to be sharp as far across the frame wide open as possible, is because I am often in situations where I have to do even group portraits within 3 minutes. I might not have any lighting on me or anything like that in dark-ish environments, and I just have to make something happen like instantly. So there's plenty of times where I'm having to shoot handheld at 1/90th of a second at f2 or even 1.4 in a dark environment of a group that's covering this much of the frame, right? And so having something that is sharp almost corner to corner as much as possible, even if it's soulless, I don't see that as the issue though. And that's one of the reasons why, as a work lens, I think that as a wedding photography lens, because I'm shooting it on those holdfast straps, so if it is better than the FLE, if I ever do get the FLE, I'll have to wait to sell this to do some side-by-side comparisons. But I feel like it's the size trade-off for my needs as a wedding photographer are completely worth it, because size, like a little bit of extra weight on a small M body on a wedding day when you have a holdfast strap is not a big deal. Same thing with like the Summilux, the 28 Summilux. Like, don't care. Like, I could totally use that lens for work, but I don't want to spend like $5,500 used to buy a only work lens. Maybe I will, but we shall see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make a video about shooting stuff wide open. Prediction video. I forget also that I'm also on a delay here. So when I say something, you guys don't see it for another like 10 seconds or so. Yeah. Let's see. The FLE with the hood has the same viewfinder blockage as the 35 Disagon without the hood. Interesting. Everyone talks about how the coatings, the T-Star coatings and stuff like that on the Zeiss mean that you don't need a hood. Maybe. I've still gotten flare and stuff, and the way that I shoot as like natural light is mostly sun behind people, backlit, and so obviously that's not going to help with this. But anytime that I can like, another thing about flare and stuff like that is when it's unwanted, like during a ceremony or something like that, I can't always choose what direction I'm photographing things in. And if I do get flare, then that means that I'm going to be inconsistent in my edits between different things, because flare often adds color cast and stuff like that as well. So that's why I use a hood. That, and like for work stuff, again, this is like, I'm also like a full-time working photographer. So the other thing is I've had issues with filters, like UV filters and stuff like that, having ghosting and stuff like that, even the nice like B+W ones. So I try not to use those. So it also just acts as like a, you know, kid runs into me or I bump into something, because my cameras when I'm shooting are at my hips. So if they kind of like bonk into things, it's fine if it hits the hood. So it's like a dual purpose protection slash, you know, actual photographic use thing. Yeah, see, I don't like the Visiflex, so not really my gig. If you're gonna use the Visiflex, might as well buy an SL, especially because they're cheaper, and I think the SL2S would be better. Let's see. Yes. So have I ever been worried about a single card slot for pro wedding photography with the M bodies? Yes, I desperately wish that Leica would make a dual card slot M. That would be worth, I don't know, $500 to $1,000 for me. So the problem is, if you've ever looked at the bottom, there's just not a lot of space in here. And if you've ever looked at like a video of them making an M, the amount of components that they're throwing in everywhere, I just don't know if they would have the room outside of squashing the battery to do that. If they could, I would be all for it, and I would pay more money and everything like that. So that would definitely be on a wish list, but I'm not sure if it's a possibility. So if anybody in engineering at Leica wants to figure out if that's possible, that would be fantastic. But I'm not sure if it's going to be a thing. Let's see. Hey. Let's see. Boom. You know, okay, so Calvin, you ask about focus stiffness. The 35 is definitely a lot more stiff than a lot of my other lenses. And oh yeah, one of the things that wasn't answered, or that I didn't talk about, that someone talked about in the comments that I wanted to bring up, was the Zeiss has like a little like focus nub in comparison to like, I mean, the TTArtisan has like essentially the same thing as a Leica. But Leicas and stuff like that have this focusing tab. So it has a place for your finger to like go in, sort of, where this just nub like isn't that great. So it's better than not having one, because it still gives you something to like place. I really actually don't like lenses, I mean, it's a 75, so it's huge, and adding a focusing tab to this would be kind of ridiculous. But same thing with the 90. Like, I don't like when there's not a focusing tab. I much prefer there to be a focusing tab, if at all possible. So better than nothing, but I really don't like this little nub thing here. Not a fan at all. But yes, better than nothing. I really do wish that they would have put an actual focusing tab on there, but as you look at it, it's kind of hard to see here, but the little nub thing here basically lines up almost exactly with the bottom of the camera. So if you put a tab on there, this lens would be sitting like this. It'd be ridiculous. So anyway, let's see. Yeah, hood's more for protection. We'll talk about, I think I'll do a video on Leica predictions and stuff like that. So yes, curvier. You said you talked about a silver version with a locking hood for the 7Artisan. That would be cool. I do like the black. It had a little bit more of like a black painty kind of version feel to it. But the fact that the hood doesn't lock makes no sense to me. Let's see. Yeah, and I think let's see. I don't know. Let's see. Are the images distorted at the edge? No, I don't find this lens to have distortion much at all. I find it to be pretty great, actually. Let's see. Okay, so I won't talk about predictions. That would be great. Yeah, we'll talk about card slots and that kind of thing. Can you put the 50 and the Zeiss side by side? Yes. So I'll take off the hood. I thought I actually might have done that in my video, but I could be totally wrong. So the 50 at its smallest point, so the 50 also moves in and out as you focus. It's not an internally focusing lens. So at its smallest point, it definitely doesn't pass the Leica balance test. Yeah, and this doesn't move. So, but here is the size difference. So it's only a few millimeters, like there's not a ton of room there. And then when you do extend it, you have even less, obviously. But this is the silver brass version or whatever that's super heavy. So the only reason it stays up like this a little bit is because it has a focusing tab in the middle under there. And then once you add this, so if like on that same subject of the TT or the 7Artisan, like why they just didn't add that. I will say too, something that I didn't mention in my Summilux video is this thing flares like a crazy, like it's got some crazy flare to it, like, and not in a good way. So often when I'm shooting this, I'll have this thing kind of wide open, and then I'm like doing this to try to like figure out where, actually I can actually do it from the light. I'm, have to figure out where the light's coming from. And luckily, one of kind of the bonuses that I can see it through the viewfinder. So I can see when my hand goes over and does this to the lens to shade it from that. So if I'm shooting backlit portraits or whatever, and I'm trying to avoid flare, that is definitely my kind of issue. So anyway, hopefully that kind of answers your question there. Let's see. Boom, boom. I should probably move this. Isn't great to look at, huh? Let's see. Yeah, I remember the SL2 being amazing. So yes, and Simon, as a couple of people have noted, the FLE passes the balance test. So it does stand on its own. So if you put the focusing tab, I had a few people send me photos of it. If you put the focusing tab to the side on an M, it'll stay up. Unlike actually this 50, it doesn't. So that is nice. Passes my Leica balance test, which I now realize is really a big deal to me. Does the Zeiss have the same Leica look for image quality? I found that the Zeiss has more contrast and I believe it's slightly cooler. And it's sharper from what my perspective and my remembrance and stuff like that, and actually does have less chromatic aberration, is that's more controlled. So the Leica just feels like a Leica in the way that it has a little bit of magic to it. Its issues are not nearly as bad. Like, they're not a deterrent enough to not buy it. And then the Zeiss is just like amazing, not perfection, but like it's pretty perfect for a 35mm lens. I've realized that 35mm lenses, just by their own designing and stuff like that and whatnot, like, are just more prone, kind of the wider you go, the more prone you are going to be to chromatic aberration and that kind of thing. There's not a lot of distortion. There's not a lot of vignetting, really. Like, there's vignetting, and the wider you go, the more vignetting you're going to get. But it's a really solid lens. So they have different image quality for sure, and a different look and a different feel a little bit. But for my work as a wedding photographer, it has enough of a feel to it, because if you shoot it at 1.4, then it has enough of a feel, because that's when some of those more imperfections come out. But the bokeh also just looks really good, and it's clean, but I don't feel like it's like clinical in that way. It has enough of a feel to it that I really enjoy the look out of it. And sorry, I'm back on these things a little bit further. Yeah, Davison. I'll hit your question right now because it just popped up on my other thing, and then I'll get back to the other list. I would say one of the things that I actually mentioned, and I kind of compare the two, is I don't really know how well a 35 Oppo would work and compare, so it's a hard comparison. I would say that it does. I'm correcting for chromatic aberration a lot less on this lens than I have in the past. I would say the 35 Summicron, I was correcting for chromatic aberration even less than this lens, but I was also, it's a stop less. So if I was shooting this at f2, I don't really know. I think that, the more wide open you're shooting, the more kind of issues like chromatic aberration you're going to see. So the 50 controls it more, but what was interesting is once I was doing the test on the TTArtisan 50, I was actually really surprised at how much, because I'm photographing my test subject, I've realized is my Hasselblad that has black and chrome, because I wanted to just like have, really high contrast and stuff like that. And I was actually really surprised at how much my 50 did have chromatic aberration, because I never have to, like almost never ever have to correct for it in my actual work. So seeing it in that lens test was actually really interesting to me. So anyway, I found that, like that example I posted in the video, that's a super extreme example, backlit coming in and a ton of branches and stuff like that. Like, you're going to see it. But for what it is, I feel like it's completely acceptable and up to the optical standard. I would say, like, again, I mentioned it, if Leica could make it, or not Leica, but if Zeiss could make this lens, and like I've read a bunch about the Distagon design now, because a lot of people have been talking about it and how it just is a bigger design in general. If Leica could make the same lens, optical quality, all that stuff, I know from an engineering standpoint, maybe it's just not possible. But if they could make this optical quality in a smaller lens that was the size of the FLE, honestly, I think it would be the perfect lens for me. I would have like zero issues, because if I could add portability to the performance of this, ultimate lens, no issues, has enough for sure. Boom. Yeah, man, it's funny because I have two comment sections. Whoops, I just hit the microphone. Apologies for that. So I will try not to be distracted by the instant comments. Quick question. Garson Sang asked about shooting film at destination weddings. So that should be, maybe I'll do a video about destination weddings in general, but for film specifically, I always bring it in. Actually, the bag that my holdfast straps came in, it's just a little like small, I don't know, bag. It makes it easy to just kind of pop out of stuff out of my bag. But I have like TSA pre-check, and so that makes it just easier anyway. I always have them hand check my film. Internationally, it's harder to do that. But I always just tell them, like, it's photography film, like, you can't take it out. And every once in a while, if I still have film in a camera, sometimes I'll forget and there'll still be film in a camera. And that's the only hard part, is because they're like, oh, just take the film out. I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, you can't just like open, they're like, oh, just like open the back up. I can't do that. But usually hand checking, and then I don't have like a lead bag, because I don't even know if they'll let you put a lead bag through a thing anyway nowadays, because if they can't see it, like, I don't know. But yeah, hand checking as much as possible. I've had it happen a couple times. I remember I was in Jamaica and I was trying to make sure that they weren't gonna throw it through the thing, and they actually took me to like a separate like interrogation room while they like had some like, I don't know, supervisor or something come over. So but yeah, I've had a couple times where people have just been jerks and done it, and I haven't had issues yet. I figure if it goes through like once through the regular commercial ones, it'll probably be fine. But the newer ones I hear are pretty intense, so maybe want to avoid that. Let's see. Boom. Alexander Goki? Whatever. Joining you and Eric Floberg's Patreons today. Dude, thank you so much. So if you don't know, I also have a Patreon where in March of last year, I started making at least 2 videos a month that are more tutorial videos, and I do a lot of where I'll edit people from Patreon, like my Patreon's photos, so you can kind of just see a different, like the way that I would go about editing something. And then I do image critiques. I break down some of my work and why it works and why it doesn't. A bunch of stuff about scouting, and also open to suggestions. So if you have, if you're on the Patreon and want to see something, I'm definitely into it. I made a whole course about intimate weddings and elopements and stuff like that. My baby's crying, and I just woke up from a nap, so I want to make sure that my wife's getting him. So apologies. Let's see. So the Patreon is a really cool thing, and I'm really excited to do a lot more of that in the future. Also, usually if I have a video that is a little bit more educational and less about like lens stuff, the moment that I get it done, because a lot of, like, I have like 7 scheduled videos right now. The moment I get it done, I just like pop it into the Patreon feed. So if you want my videos early, you can get them there too. Not that it's really that big a deal. But anyway, for anybody that's on here that has joined the Patreon, I really appreciate it. And even if you don't really care about learning from me and want to just support my channel, it's $10 a month, and you can jump on there and all that kind of stuff. Boom. Let's see. Wow, yeah, I'm way far back here. So I've answered the Voigtlander question a few times now. Let's see. Yeah. So I think the Zeiss stuff, if anybody, like, if you ask anybody about lenses, like, and they have any idea about optics in general, people like will say that Zeiss is like the thing that they can come up with, right? So like, I know that they're like not made in Germany, and they're made with Cosina or whatever in Japan, yada yada yada. They're made the same stuff as Voigtlander. I've found that in my experiences shooting Voigtlander stuff, the Zeiss stuff has been superior. The Voigtlander stuff is more interesting, that's for sure. It has more character. Other than the 50 sonar, that thing had too much character for me. So I didn't actually like that. But let's see. Cool. My baby will be taken care of. Wow, I'm all the way back to the flare on the 50. I've never had the 50 Zeiss other than the sonar, and they're like couldn't be more polar opposite lenses. Their look is like completely different. The 50 sonar, when you nailed it wide open though, it was super sharp. So let's see. Yeah, I should have mentioned that in my 50 lux video, that it flares like crazy. Let's see, man. I think a Noctilux would be super fun. That's where I'm at, Jackie, on this whole question thing. A Noctilux would be super fun, and from my knowledge, this 75, and from my recollection, is about the same size as the Noctilux. And if I'm complaining about the size of the 35, like, you know, it's just the Noctilux is an enormous lens. So for work and for creative portraits and stuff, and like if you wanted to get that like super shallow depth of field medium format look, maybe it'd be fun. I definitely don't have the funds to ever buy a Noctilux, that's for sure. But I have considered TTArtisan makes a Noctilux. I don't think it's a copy necessarily, but they make a 50.95, and I think it's like $700, $800, $900, something like that. So under $1,000. I've considered getting one just to try it out, and I think it'd be kind of fun. So anyway, let's see. Someone has Pierluigi. I'm definitely saying your name wrong. My apologies, because I speak no Italian, if that's what you are, and that's what your name is. The M9 with a 35 2.8 broken. Well, first, I think you can get those repaired. My friend Eric, I believe, got his 35 f2 repaired, so from Zeiss. So I think you can get it repaired. I do. For documentary stuff, I think 35 is great. I would always get at least an f2 lens, especially if you're shooting film. And the M9 is essentially like a digital film camera. The sensitivity of it is pretty bad, and so I would definitely say that getting, an f2 lens on that, because I wouldn't shoot that camera above like 1250, and even at that was like pushing it. Dude, Paul, so I'm seeing, I'm not to this comment yet, but I'm seeing the talk about the 75 7Artisans. So I've had a few people say that this lens is super sharp, but like, to me, it looks like a Jedi Force Ghost. That's like the joke I made about it. It's so hazy, wide open, and it was like impossible to calibrate. But at like a medium distance, like full body distance, it looks really cool. And I got some cool stuff with it, but detail wise, it like has very little sharpness at 1.25. Cool lens, and I made a review video about it that's scheduled on my channel, so obviously subscribe if you want to see that. And then if you guys just generally, I don't even know how many people are on here right now, 89, that's not too bad, right on. If any of you guys aren't subscribed yet, subscribing would be awesome. That definitely helps this channel out a lot. And if you are on the stream and you like what's going on, hit the like button. That also helps. I know that YouTubers say that crap all the time, but it's because of the algorithms and stuff like that. It really does help push this stuff out to more people. So super helpful. And then clicking links in people's description. You know, you always hear people say that. It's because like we get that tiny commission off Amazon, which over time ends up being a couple $100 a month, like if people are lucky enough. So anyway, yeah, that's just helpful general knowledge about YouTuber stuff. Boom. Okay, so Calvin Lee, you asked about the Light Lens Lab 35 f2 Cron Chinese copy. So that is the most expensive 35 millimeter, or most expensive Chinese lens I've seen so far. It's basically a copy of the 8-element version 1 or version 2 Leica Summicron. It looks awesome, and someone, I'm really, apologies if you're watching, but someone sent me a direct message on Instagram and sent me a bunch of samples, And that lens is way better than I was anticipating it being. So like, it's not hazy. It like has a cool look to it. Has a lot of vignetting wide open. But I would definitely consider like playing with that lens, especially shooting it on film. It looks amazing. It has that really retro design and stuff like that. So anyway, looks really cool. Let's see. Yeah, the 50 Oppo is, from all accounts, like incredible. I'll say this too. So the 35 Ultron, I'm like, that's how far I am in this review. I'm like 10 minutes behind you guys probably. But the 35 Ultron looks, I don't know why, but like the two-tone, like silver black, like old school look, I hate that look. I don't know why. It's just that, like, the look of that lens, I don't know. Because like the M10s like look vintage, but they also like have a modern look to them, and that lens like looks like it's trying to be vintage, and then it has that little like screw-on lens tab thing. I don't know, that lens might be amazing, but like the look of it for me, I just wasn't a big fan of. Dude, Quintavious, by the way, I think if you are the person that I think you are, I've watched some of your videos because you also have a 28 Summicron, right? You have the version 1 you just got, I think. I might be completely wrong. But if so, I've watched a bunch of your videos, man. So good work. And you guys should check out his stuff. Class W, love this camera. I'm eventually probably going to do a Class W versus Summicron video because I just think it'd be fun. Shoot both on film. And I've also considered doing, the reason I have this up is I've also considered doing like a Zeiss versus Zeiss. You know, like, is the Context T2 as sharp as an actual, you know, like rangefinder lens? I feel like that'd be really interesting. Okay, let's see. Oh man, I'm back to like lead bags. I haven't tried the Summerit. 2.4 for me is too slow. And if I'm going to shoot a 2.4 lens, I feel like I'm just going to buy like whatever that Pancake 35 is from Voigtlander. They look really cool, and if you're not going to ever shoot stuff wide open, rock and roll. I'm a sucker for bokeh and things wide open, and so I'm sure it's amazing. And if you don't need that, like, buy a Summerit. I bet it's awesome. Dude, Tay, you're just like crushing these comments because I know a lot of these things too. I've felt a lot of the same things. Let's see. Howdy Paul from San Diego. This is probably a while ago, but let's see. I do think the silver Summerits look really cool though, but not the telephoto. The 75 and the 90 have like a black focusing whatever grip, and I think that looks really not good. Let's see. Whoa! So you're telling me that this lens made in Japan is made in Germany? I don't know about that. It says made in Germany or made in Japan on it. Let's see. Okay, I made it to the 75 or the 75 7Artisans comments. Sorry guys, I'm pretty far behind here. Also, I do have the, maybe I'll just do a live video on it. The 75, not the 75, the 7Artisan 35 Pancake 5.6 lens. I have that coming in just to test out because I thought it'd be fun. It looks ridiculous. It doesn't really match any of this stuff. But it has that like new little Wen thing that the 35 1.4 has on it. So I have high hopes that it's decent. And I think that it's small enough that it would be fun to just like toss in a bag and like just be able to pull out and stuff like that for quick snaps and things. So I feel like that would be interesting. Weird question, Simon, do you leave the Peak Design anchors on when you're using the holdfast? I found that sometimes they fall in front of the viewfinder. They do every once in a while, but very rarely. And I honestly find that sticking this in between my fingers like gives me a tiny extra bit of security. Not that I would ever do this, but I found that this isn't much of an issue. So I kind of like it, actually. So I usually kind of have my thumb, I'm realizing, now that I'm just picking this up, I usually have my thumb kind of in front of it, so it's not usually an issue. It's actually up against my nose right now. So I have had it before, but to get it in front of the viewfinder, it would be kind of like, you'd have to, it's only happened to me a couple times probably. So anyway, but yeah, I leave them on, and that's one of the reasons I like this whole setup, because it's so small, and like these are small enough that I can leave them on the holdfast, and I don't really care, because this whole thing being modular like that still works really well for me. Tony Whitmarsh, you said that do you have that lens, the Noctilux TTArtisan Noctilux thing? I think that would be kind of cool. Maybe I'll try to get one. Paul Cortez, how long have you been a photographer, and what kind of photographer do you consider yourself? I am a wedding photographer, a wedding and elopement photographer. I say that at the beginning of all my videos, except for this one, I guess. And I shoot weddings and elopements, and then a lot of the stuff this year has been just photographing my family and stuff. So I just did a comparison video between the 28 Summicron and the 28 Voigtlander Ultron. And since I haven't shot any professional work on the 28 yet, the stuff was just like of me at Christmas and my family and out on family walks and stuff. But the nice thing is, like, I have like indoor portraits and outdoor portraits and things far away and stuff like that. So part of the nice thing about doing these lens reviews and stuff like that, it's fun to like sort of grow the channel and things and answer questions for myself and hopefully for others. But also, like, whenever I'm doing a lens review on something, I'm just carrying that lens around for a week or two and using it almost all the time, so I can get a good feel for how it would work. And so it's been fun to just like photograph my family a bunch and have all those photos. Let's see. My wife is asking me if I can be done in 10 minutes. Sure. Cool. So we will be done in 10 minutes, so my wife can go get my son from school. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Voigtlanders. Okay, the Voigtlander does have a 50 Oppo coming out that I'm really interested in. So if anybody has a contact at CameraQuest, I think they're the distributor for Voigtlander, and wants to find a way to get me one of those to test out, rock and roll. That would be awesome. I would be definitely down for that. I would love to check out the 90 Oppo as well, but I think that lens is like $3,000, and for the amount I use this at weddings, if I can get this one calibrated, it works fine for me. I've been considering selling it. I was going to buy the 75. I'm just kind of all over the place for my telephoto lens right now. Let's see. Yeah, MS Optics has those tiny like cap size lenses as well. And I also saw that KEK or whatever has a 30 f10. They just took a Kodak disposable camera and shoved it in a lens cap. I've considered buying one of those. I think it would be fun. Let's see. All right. Yep, I have to go get my son from preschool in 5 minutes. So, ish. So, anyway. Cool. Let's see. The Peak straps. So, my Peak Design, I don't have any metal parts on Peak Design, and they don't scratch anything. So, like, there's no metal on these straps either from Clever Supply Co. Oh yeah, I didn't make a description for this video. My bad, I don't think. So apologies for that. I usually try to put links to this kind of stuff in those descriptions. I'll make it afterwards. But there's no metal parts on here, so I'm not really worried about this stuff. The plastic could scratch it, but anyway. Let's see. Right on, dude, Vincent. So Vincent Perry Jr. right here. We were in a photographer's fantasy football league, and my dude and I were both in the Super Bowl, and I won. I had the most points and won the Super Bowl. And so I think I got $500 from that thing. So boom, take that, photographers. But Vincent, you got $100, right? Because you got second place. So got something out of it. I used the money. I said something about it the other day, but I bought all of the Cinestill 800T from Leica store Miami. They had 10 rolls left, I think, and I bought 10 rolls. So that's part of what I used my fantasy football winnings on, was some Cinestill film. Cool. I think I actually caught up on these comments as I kind of blazed through some of them. But anyway, team, if you guys have any more questions, I have about 5 minutes or so left. So drop them in there. I'll try to answer things. And yeah, free for all at this point. I feel like I've talked about a lot of stuff. Dude, yeah. Fantasy football, man. I was stressing. My team was so good all year, and then I was getting worried. There's a couple times where I scored like 80 points, and then other times where I was scoring like 180. So, yeah. Oh, man. It's been crazy. What a freaking year. Yeah. I don't know. They said that they don't have any more 800T left, because I think I bought all of it, but they might have some 50D. It was only, only $12 a roll, which is super cheap for what it is. Dude, yes, I was trying to get to this actually. The Voigtlander 75 1.5. The 75 1.5 from Voigtlander. I've been wanting to try that lens, but I have a friend that bought it and said that it back focuses and has a lot of focus shift issues. So if anybody has had that issue, let me know. With the 75 1.5. Tips on photographing the Pacific Northwest. Be ready for the rain, Vincent. That's part of the reason. Like, I'll do a video on like why Leica and probably like rangefinder focusing and stuff like that. But it's definitely part of it. Let's see. Scotty Song, favorite medium format camera. I did a video on it. It's my Hasselblad 500cm. Sorry, I'm looking for where it is in my room here, but I don't think it's close enough. I actually am like kind of over 6x6 because I've just used it for like 10 years now. But the feel of using that camera is my favorite. Plus, like, if you watch my video, I talk about how it was my uncle's. So it has like some personal significance to me as well. Oh, the Peak Design strap uses aluminum hardware. No. So go to any of my other videos and click on the Clever Supply Co link, and I think I have like 15% off if you use Benj as a code. These things are all leather, and they just use the hardware. So like the plastic hardware stuff. So I feel like this fits the aesthetic of Leicas and everything like that as well. Dude, I've tried the RZ Simon, but I never liked it because it was just so big. Recommended wide lens for an M3 by a different M. I think that the M3 is, supposed to be for like 50 millimeters basically. I've considered buying one eventually to pair with my M6. Would be pretty fun. But yeah, I don't like using external viewfinders on film cameras because it kind of defeats the purpose for me. I've used 35 when I borrowed an M3 at one point, which is the outer frame lines, but with glasses, like, you could kind of only see the middle anyway. So, and I've done the same when I had my 28 with an M2. Oh, okay. Might have another minute or two. Well, he's still asleep. Okay. Well, my wife's going to go get the kids. Okay. So we can stick around for another 10, 15 or so if you guys want. I don't know if people have bailed out now. Oh, no, we're still rolling strong. So yeah, my wife's going to go. And that means I'll stay and chat for another 10 or so. Let's see. Cool. Rock and roll. Yeah, I'll keep rolling here because why not, So yeah, my recommendation for an M3 is to trade it for an M2 or an M4. because M3, I'm sure, like when I was selling my M2, maybe I would have traded for an M3 at some point because I have an M6. I think that would be a good, not budget combo, but a cheaper combo than buying two M6s or whatever. Ken, you love this more chill tone than my usual vids? Yeah, cool. I'm a pretty chill person in general, kind of like an introvert, and I'm like an extroverted introvert. So when I'm around a lot of people, like if we were all just like hanging out in a room talking, like I would be one of the more loud people talking because I like to talk about this kind of stuff and whatnot, and I speak at things and like to be on panels and all that kind of stuff. But I do find that, yeah, I'm a little bit more laid back in general. Yeah, Mamiya 7, that is on my, I talked about it last time. The Mamiya 7 is like kind of like one of my white whale cameras. It's one of the cameras that I have wanted for a long time. And I remember when I first was getting into rangefinders and Leicas, I had a friend that was selling his entire Mamiya 7 II kit. So he had like the wide, whatever that is, like a 55, a 65, the 80, and like the 110 or whatever their long lens is. He was selling the whole kit for $1,700, and I was like, that looks really cool. And then I said to myself, well, the lenses are too slow. I don't know how much I would use that, like, you know, f/4.5 lenses and stuff. And now, obviously, I'm kicking myself like crazy because I could have bought that kit and loved every minute of it because I love rangefinders and I love the portability of that thing. Yeah, it'd be great. So, Rio, you're saying that your 21 Ultron back focuses. That is a big bummer. I like my 21... it's in my camera bag over there. I only pull it out for like a few things at weddings, so like I don't usually need it. So I don't use it that often. But mine is like spot on. I've considered getting the 1.4 version, but that version is even bigger than the 1.8. So, and the 1.8 is already pretty big for me. But mine doesn't back focus at all. So, yeah. Let's see. What do I think about the Hasselblad X1D? So that is the video that I made that has the most, is like the longest video. It's like 28 minutes long or something stupid. Because I thought about making multiple videos and then just didn't. Decided to just like make one long one and then no one watched it. It's like one of my least watched videos. So if you want to see my thoughts on it, I talk all about it and show just a ton of samples from 3 different weddings or 2 different weddings that I shot with it. And I filmed a whole like street photography video where I went and did a bunch of stuff around Baltimore when I was out there for a wedding. But I'll probably make a video about that eventually. But I think I was so bummed about the fact that no one watched my X1D video that I was like, maybe I just won't make it. But anyway, I do think that on my list of things to buy in 2020 before everything happened was going to be to upgrade to the M10s and then to buy a 50R probably from Fujifilm because the price was better, and then adaptability of lenses is better on that because they don't rely on leaf shutters. So I'm kind of waiting for the upcoming rumored whatever that thing is, GFX 100S or whatever they're gonna make, because that's apparently gonna be $6,500 or something. I don't need 100 megapixels, and I probably won't use autofocus anyway, so I'm hoping that the 50R will drop in price enough that I would be able to afford it more. Let's see. Yeah, I would really love yeah, so the GFX system on my list of things to buy. I loved the X1D2. I thought it was really fun, and the feeling of it and everything like that was great. The lenses were amazing. I just wish the lenses were faster. And then the fact that it turns on the electronic shutter and at such a slow readout speed, it makes any movement impossible to use. So that is the biggest bummer. And then plus the price is like 80% more or so than like a 50R from Fujifilm. So, I mean, I have just like stuff all over this table, but yeah. I think I'll probably pick up one of those if weddings and stuff like that pick up enough that I can justify it. I think having one of the things I thought about doing was buying, instead of I had like $3,000 that I could spend on gear after selling a bunch of stuff, and I could either buy a 50R and then pay money, like more money to get more stuff for it, or I could buy the 28 Summicron. And I thought I would rather spend more money on a staple piece of equipment in my Leica kit, because that's my main thing, than buy an auxiliary piece to go along with my stuff. So I went 28 Summicron over buying a GFX, and I think that's still the right decision. And I guess we'll just kind of see moving forward how I feel about that. Boom. Cool. So my kid is still asleep. That's amazing. Pretty surprised at that, actually, to be honest. Yeah, man, tons of stuff coming out here. So if you're interested, I do have, they're not open yet, but I'm making a video on the X100V, a video comparing the X100V to the X100F. I have a video already filmed and scheduled for the 75, 7Artisan 75 Noctilux E thing, the TTArtisan 35 1.4. I have a video comparing the 28 Summicron to the 28 Ultron, and then I have a video about the 28 Ultron, all coming out, plus videos on the Nikon L35 AF point and shoot camera, a video on the Canon A1 film camera, like the regular like SLR camera. I'm trying to think of what other videos I have that I've actually already scheduled and edited and everything. Oh, and one on the EOS R. So I made one on the Canon EOS R as well. So lots of videos coming. And so my hardest part is to figure out how to schedule all those in a good way. So it's pretty awesome. Yeah, let's see. Where do you get film processed in the Puget Sound area, or do you ship it out? I send all of my film to Indie Film Lab in Alabama. I've just been sending my film there since the beginning for me. I took a trip to New Zealand a couple years ago, or a few years ago, 5 years ago, and they did all the film for it. They just said like, yeah, we'll do all the processing and scanning for you, and then I've just essentially used them ever since. They've sponsored my workshops and stuff like that. And I think I'm going to talk to them about possibly being a slight channel sponsor so that I can do more film related content and pump out more stuff. Because obviously shooting film is sort of cost prohibitive, especially when you're doing just like tests on stuff and, all that kind of jazz. But Speedy Photo in Parkland, if you're local to me, they do film scanning and stuff like that. I've just never been good with that. Is your leather strap chestnut or English tan? I'm not sure. I think I might have one of each. They're different. They're slightly different colors. I think it might be. I don't know. I'm sorry. I sort of helped the guy, whatever. I sort of helped them develop some of their straps at some point, and so I've just had a bunch of like beta versions of their straps. So I've actually never ordered one myself. But so I've never actually gone through their website and clicked on the links to tell you what things I have. So apologies for not knowing what exact color it is. But you could probably direct message them and ask like what they have an Instagram, Clever Supply Co. And you can probably just ask them which ones I have and they can tell you. I should probably know that. It's a good question. Good trivia. I will know that in the future. Yeah. Rangefinder wide open video. So I'm going to do that video. I'll probably do a Leica predictions video because I think that'd be interesting. I have a video I posted about a long time ago on the community tab about doing a photographing in the snow. So I have a video on that coming out. I haven't filmed that yet, but I will. And I'll probably put up I have a white backdrop behind this. Maybe I'll put that one up for the snowy effect. Yeah, Simon, the wrist strap looks great. And I will double that with, I used this when I was filming the video with my son. And so if the weather holds, I might do another video with him today. And we'll probably at some point I'll probably have him shoot film at some point, but we will see. But yeah, the wrist straps are great. I will say that they're a little bit thicker than some of my wrist straps, and so the amount between here and here is a little bit bulky at times, where it does this. So I basically just, as long as you can put that piece in your hand, then this totally makes sense. So as long as that kind of folds down and then the strap part goes into your palm when you're holding it, then it's awesome. So I was able to, like, with the way I filmed that whole video with my son was I had my EOS R around my neck, and then I had this in my hand, and then I could just like drop it and just kind of like plop it up like this and shoot. So that was how I was able to film that video and try to take some photos at the same time. And the nice part about these is, like, you can just shoot everything one-handed with the X100V. So a little bonus there. I've had a lot of questions, and I have a friend, my friend Tyler Trudeau has, oh yeah, I talked about cheap Amazon straps too. I didn't link those, my bad. But my friend Tyler Trudeau, who's my neighbor and a good film photographer and stuff like that as well, he has one, an X Pro 3. So I've been thinking about borrowing his and doing a comparison video. So we will see about that. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. Seems like it's a lot of work, but the X Pro 3 is something that really does intrigue me. I love that whole thing. I wanted ultimate portability, so that's why I got the X100V instead of the X Pro 3. That's like going to be a mouthful and a confusing thing there. But yeah, I think that that camera would be really, really fun. And I think you could easily build a kit with the X100V and an X Pro 3. And yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting. I was looking up videos with the Mitacon 35.95, and the 7Artisan makes a 35.95. So I think that would be a cool, fun little combo thing too on the X Pro 3, or maybe the XE3 or whatever those cameras are too. Yeah, so I pulled up I need to work on I was going to try to make a preset in camera for the JPEGs on my X100V, but I was having a hard time dialing in some of the settings on the Fuji X Raw Studio or whatever that thing is called. So yeah, I don't know. I couldn't figure out how to do that well enough. Like, you could change settings and stuff like that, but I felt like I could change the settings on the back of the camera too. So I was hoping I could kind of like dial in like better color things and stuff like that, but some of the stuff it wasn't letting me do, like shadows and things. I was a little bit confused there. So maybe I'll have to have someone help me out. My friend Paul is like a sponsored Fuji X photographer or whatever, so maybe I can have him help me a bit. What's your opinion on rope straps? So I think they're cool. They look cool. And I have I have a ton of camera straps. I'm trying to get to just be, I know it's still overkill, but I'm going to get one more of these straps that's longer. Because I want one that I can side sling for when I'm like out with my kids and stuff like that. Because this one is good to wear on the shoulder like this. And I'll have to figure out what lengths these are too. But this is a great, like, put it on my shoulder and have it walk. But I want one that's a little bit longer so I can side sling it. Because then when I have to pick up my kid or whatever, then I like to flip it around so the camera's on my back so I can carry a kid. And this is like just a little bit too short for I'm like 6'1", and so it's a little bit too short for my tall body. And then this one is small so my son can use it, but then also when I'm working at a wedding or something like that, like I want the secondary camera, or actually third camera, to be like up high. So like if it's a Hasselblad or whatever it is, like I want it to be up high so it's not bouncing into anything like that. So this one's way shorter than I would normally do. And it also, I got it short so that I could wear my Class W and like a Leica like kind of stacked on top of each other. So like this is like classic dad mode, but this works really, really well. Like this, and then I made this one long enough that it can kind of stack underneath it. So this is like super nerd daddom, but you can do that. So that's the rationale behind those different lengths. But I do want to get one more longer one. So anyway, that's just kind of what's going on there. So anyway, the question was actually about rope straps, but I just decided like I just want to find one set of straps that I just use for everything. So I'm going to end up, and it's like, feels like overkill, but this is like more work strap and thing for point and shoots and my son. This is kind of like the normal strap. And then I want to buy one more that is easier to use. And then they were nice enough to send me a wrist strap as well. And this ended up being really cool for like this camera and point and shoots and stuff like that. It's a little bit more bulky than some of my other wrist straps, but it obviously just kind of fits the whole ecosystem really well. Ken, where would you like to travel when restrictions lift up? Man, I think honestly we're probably just like my family and I are just gonna go to Hawaii. Like I think you can technically go there now anyway, but just getting some sun and stuff like that. We usually go somewhere warm-ish in the winter, like in like February or something, just to kind of escape, because I live in the Pacific Northwest and it's just kind of rainy for months and months on end. Let's see. Yeah, focus shift. Yeah, so man, you have a super long name, but Bob Hogendorn 1988. Who knows what that is? But yeah, I have probably 6 Gordy straps. So I was using those forever because they're small. But I just shift between, obviously I have like 17 cameras on this table. I shift between cameras so often that I was buying new straps for every camera and then packing them into bags and stuff like that with kind of like trying to like wrap the strap up. I really just wanted to have a more modular system. And then Holdfast makes a strap also that's kind of like interchangeable, but it's just a little bit more bulky. I had a harder time getting, I'm looking at it on the other side of my room. I have it on my Rolleiflex. I had a harder time getting it on and off fast and stuff like that. And then it had metal, and so it was harder to just like pack things around on it and stuff like that. And so I kind of went with this Peak Design vibe. Let's see. Yeah. So no sweat, dude. Okay. Cool. Right on. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions, requests, all that kind of stuff, drop them below. I know we talked about the 35 quite a bit. I'm considering I'm probably going to do a focal length series. This is probably the wrong place to talk about it, but I'm definitely going to actually do a focal length series. So far I'm going to do a 21, 28, 35, 50, and then like 85, 90, and just talk about the psychology behind how those lenses make you feel, and like why directors and stuff like that and photographers choose those focal lengths. And I'm, to be honest, like I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to put it on Patreon or if I'm going to put it on YouTube. I know that you guys are probably going to say to put it on YouTube. But I'm sort of undecided because I already have like a little bit of a class on focal lengths that I do for my teaching stuff, for workshops and stuff like that. But trying to figure out if I'm going to do a focal length series, if it would be more worthwhile to do on Patreon because it's a lot more teaching and a lot more in-depth stuff, or if it would be better to do on YouTube. Kind of undecided. But anyway, I feel like it's really interesting because I specifically shoot different focal lengths for different things. And I've also just studied a lot about like how different lenses and perspectives affect how the viewer perceives things. So a lot more just in depth about like why things make people feel different ways and stuff like that. So anyway, my plan was to do it on Patreon. Trying to figure out if it would be worthwhile to do on YouTube, but probably Patreon. Ken, how does the M240 stack up against the M10 in terms of colors? I think the M240 was a little bit more vibrant. So more saturation, more vibrance and stuff like that. Yeah. And I will say in general, if you don't need the smaller form factor and you don't need low light performance, you can totally buy an M240 and probably like a good $2,000 lens and be better off that way. That's my quick recommendation on that front. Paul, back to the Zeiss Distagon thing. Yeah, the Distagon and then the Voigtlander and the TTArtisan are all very different lenses. The 35 Zeiss is like as perfect of a 35 millimeter lens as I have used in terms of like optical issues and sharpness and stuff like that. Honestly, it probably actually is the best one that I've ever used. The TTArtisan, I feel like renders slightly similar, but is a lot softer. It's way softer, wide open. But the rendering in terms of like modern stuff feels modern-ish. The 7Artisan lens feels a lot more vintage. It has that swirly bokeh effect, and a lot more of those kind of like lens issues. The Nocton, the 1.2 Nocton, has a ton of that same kind of feel, except for even more depth and more pop, kind of a separation there. I think that's because of the swirliness to the bokeh, and it has a distortion too, and then a ton of vignetting, so that center really like kind of pops out a lot. And then, yeah, I think that's all the ones I've tried. And then the Summicron is just like, has good character, but not a lot of character. It's sharp, doesn't have a lot of issues with chromatic aberration and that kind of stuff. But the character issue, I would say the Zeiss and the Summicron feel like they have the same amount of character if you have the Zeiss at 1.4 and the Summicron at f2. The Zeiss is more perfect, but the Summicron is slower, so then when you add those kind of two things together, they kind of like even each other out a little bit more. Let's see. So the telephoto lenses I have for Leica right now are the 90 f2 that I need. I'm going to send to Leica to get calibrated, and then the 75 1.25 that I'm sort of, I don't know, like in between on. I have a video coming out about that lens. I need to shoot it more just on the M. I found that I was shooting it way more on the EOS R because it was just easier. And I'll see how well I can shoot that thing wide open on a rangefinder, because I'm pretty good with the rangefinder, I'm not going to lie. Let's see. Yes, Simon, black paint M10P. That's on my list of future things I want Leica to make. Yeah, the X Pro 3 with 35 1.4. I owned, Fujifilm sent me an X Pro 1 with the 35 1.4, and I used that lens on a trip to Thailand and Cambodia and Turkey. Istanbul, I had an elopement in Istanbul, and I used that combo a lot. But it was back before I was shooting a lot of 50, so I like didn't really like that focal length a lot. I felt it was always slow and loud, and like it pushed in and out, and so I didn't like it a lot, but the look was pretty good for what it was. But it was also an X Pro 1, so it was slow and all that kind of stuff. But now with like the new X Pro 3, and then whatever if they make an X Pro 4, or I don't know, whatever, I think that lens, kind of like the EF lenses on an EOS R, when the new bodies come out, like that, you know, new AF technology and stuff like that kind of revitalizes some of those older lenses. I saw like the little focus thing going all over the place on my face there. Let's see here. Cool. Got a couple more minutes. If you guys have any more questions, we can keep rolling. But otherwise, probably gonna go make some lunch and stuff. If you're here and haven't dropped a like on the video or subscribed, please do, because that helps quite a bit. And like I said, stay tuned for lots and lots of other videos. I have a ton of videos hitting up before. Yep. So, yeah, I have a bunch of stuff already filmed, a bunch of stuff that I'm going to film. And it seems like the Fujifilm community likes things quite a bit. So I might be making more Fujifilm videos in the future because anybody that likes... I think my channel might turn into a little Leica Fujifilm combo because so many people stinking like it. Boom. Okay, this is good. Last question that I'll hit up, and then I'll let you guys be. Decide between the TTArtisan or the 75Artisan 35mm lenses. The 7Artisan feels more unique. I like the design. The lens hood is cool, but I wish it stopped. This one has a more like classic look. It feels more like you're trying to copy something that already exists. The 7Artisan is sharper wide open. It's a better lens in the center, but it swirls more and has more of a vintage vibe to it, which is cool. This lens, wide open, is softer, but it renders a little bit more normally. And so this is just like a good lens for the money. The 7Artisans feels like it's better because it's sharper in the center, wide open. So it's a total... The quality of the image is completely different on both. So it just depends on what you're going for. If I was going to only have one of them, I might have the TTArtisan. But I like sharpness in the center, and that's kind of a big thing for me. So maybe I think the 7Artisan performed a little bit better in the sharpness area. So I'd probably actually go with the 7Artisan. But I have, videos coming on both, so rock and roll. Anyway, boom. Thanks for joining. It's been fun. Keep joining in, liking, subscribing, commenting, all that good stuff. And I will see you guys on the next one. I have videos coming out next week on Monday. I try to drop videos every Monday. And then I'll try to keep doing these live streams because they seem to be semi-beneficial. So anyway... rock and roll. Talk to you guys soon, and have a good weekend. Stay safe.